the big secret of modern saxophones, clarinets, and so on is that they took what was essentially a single beating reed, and they divided it into a mouthpiece, the reed itself, and a ligature. Now the ligature holds the reed on to the mouthpiece, and the reed opens and closes against this mouthpiece and makes the sound happen, the pulses of air that excite the air column inside the instrument. So this is my first tenor sax mouthpiece from circa 1963 or late 62, somewhere in there. Anyway, a Gale mouthpiece. I always love these things. Hard rubber. There's the reed flapping against the piece. If you get a close up on that, I don't know if you could.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And then it doesn't really sound very good. Now the other part of this is that they found out that by using their lips they can modify the sound. So the lip became a very integral part of controlling the reed. And I can't really control it very well, but if I put it into my palm, I can make several sounds. The reed is really stiff, so it's squeaking. So, learning to play the instrument, you have to tuck your lower lip over your lower teeth, and your upper lip has to close over the top of the mouthpiece. So it's basically like this. And you have to breathe through the corners of your mouth. When you have the instrument in your mouth, you have to be able to open the corners of your lips and breathe through your lips. Really take in some air. It's not just the nose. Although there are people that just breathe through the nose, but they're kind of rare, and they have to have pretty light reeds to do that. So anyway, the reeds are in graded numbers. 1 is really soft, 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3. All the top players usually play really stiff reeds that they modify slightly, and they have jaws of iron. I was taught by an Italian American named Francesco Lucido, and Francesco had been at the Conservatory of Naples and actually played the clarinet when he first started, and in the old antique French manner with the reed on the top of the mouthpiece like this. And they just don't do that anymore, but his whole embouchure was very light. Now, the clarinets started with the hornpipes and so on, got modified, and became known in France as chalumeau. And there are antiques in museums that didn't have any keys, that were basically little hornpipes, but now they had this modified mouthpiece. And the earliest kinds of clarinets didn't have very many keys. And here I have an example of the Albert system. This is actually in C major, next to the boom system, Theobald Boom modified flutes and put this kind of key work on flutes, and then it got applied to the saxophone and the clarinet. So these kind of systems, the so-called Albert system clarinets, are associated with folk music in Greece and so on. And I like to play a Greek certos from, well, it's originally from the Rembetico music, but this is the Cretan version, the Critico version. this register, the low register of the clarinet, is called the Chalumeau register, and it comes in at around. This is a C clarinet, so this is actually D concert pitch. Comes in. Probably around E, let's say. And then you start getting in what they call the throat register. There's a leaky pad somewhere there. And then you have the clarion register. And then you have the very top notes, which I'm not going to play because they're so shrill. When these were played with Dixieland, they would play, a lot of times they would play harmonies, they play counterpoint, and they would usually play in the clarion register and up to the top notes, simply because that could be heard over the trombone, the trumpet, the banjo, and they had a tuba or a string bass, the drums, and so on. That was the Chalumeau range was too quiet, unless the band really quieted down, in which case they do a solo in the lower range of the Chalumeau register. So anyway, the boom system gave people quite a lot more leeway with chromatic notes. And you could play a lot of more chromaticisms. This is the B-flat clarinet that I started out with because so many American children are put through the high school or junior high marching band. And the 19th century saw the growth of brass bands because they had valves on the trumpets and so on. And so that allowed them to really advance brass instruments. Well, along with the advances in brass instrument technology was also the saxophone and the clarinet, and they were added as part of the brass band. So they weren't purely brass bands at the end of the 19th century. People like Gilmore and John Philip Sousa had big bands, big concert bands. Originally in the case of Sousa, part of the Marine Corps band, President's Own. So American brass band stuff, so many people graduate out of that and then go on to other instruments. But myself, I started out with a piano and learned to read music when I was 7. And then when I was 12 years old in the 7th grade at junior high school, instead of taking music appreciation for the umpteenth time, I took beginning band. And I loved the visceral part of the thing. Piano, you just plunk down keys, but this, you breathe, and I was diagnosed as supposedly as pre-asthmatic. Well, I never developed full asthma because I was playing wind instruments, and from 12 years of age on. So the clarinet was a very healthy choice for me. So my first clarinet was actually a metal clarinet, and I passed it on to one of my cousins.